Hi, everybody. It looks like we have some people popping in. We are going to give this a couple minutes until about 11:35 to kick off, but I am going to launch a poll right now. So feel free to participate in our poll, and then we will kick off in just a couple minutes. Hi, everyone. I see more people are popping in. So just one more time, we do have a poll going right now that you can respond to. And we will just wait a couple more minutes to allow some more people to trickle in. Thanks so much. I was muted just then. Okay, but I think we are going to kick off. I'm going to let the poll keep going for a little bit longer, and then I will launch the results. But thank you all so much for joining us today on this little Monday. We are so happy to have you here. My name is Lindsey Shaktman. I am one of the planners with Mavinhouse Events. I am joined by my team members today. We will all be saying hello. Mavinhouse Events is a modern events planning firm. We specialize in celebrations that feel super personal and distinctly unique. We plan weddings, corporate events, brand events, intimate gatherings, all throughout New England and the New York region, as well as throughout the country. So what does that mean for you? Essentially, your celebration will be a reflection of your style, your taste, with the creative resourcefulness and production know-how of a true expert, no matter the scale or complexity of your vision. So we believe that wedding planning should be an expertise, or an experience, as well as an expertise that fits into your life, not the other way around. We offer 3 partnerships. Our first partnership, it's our most comprehensive engagement. We help you design, curate your event from the beginning all the way through the end of your production weekend. Partnership 2, it gives you access to our trusted vendor relationships, and you can lean on us to lend a keen eye, bringing your vision to life just through a fresh design. It feels beautiful. It's also logistically sound. It kind of has everything going on. Partnership 3 ensures all of your wedding day details are executed totally seamlessly. You can be fully present with your friends and family, knowing you have a trusted partner on your side. So just a couple of housekeeping notes for today's webinar to make your experience super smooth. You're all going to know us pretty well by the end of this. We encourage you to follow us on social media after our time together. You're all also going to be invited to schedule a free consultation call with our team through our website. Our website is just www.mavinhouse.com. So no events in there, just mavinhouse.com. And today, please feel free to use the chat to ask your questions, okay? Nothing is off the table. When you are chatting us, just make sure that you're doing your little drop down, selecting panelists so that we know that we can see it. It's not getting lost in the rest of the chat, which we hope you guys will be using to talk to each other and say hello. And so we're going to be talking about a little bit of everything. So from how to build your budget, design inspiration, logistical considerations. We are just here to help today. So we are going to, I think, just kick it off. If you're ready, I'm going to start by ending the poll and launching the results so you can all kind of see who's here and where everyone is in the process. Just a little fun thing to check out. And I will kick it off with a little bit of an introduction of myself now that I've introduced you to Mavinhouse. So again, my name is Lindsey Shaktman. I was based in Brooklyn, New York, but I now call Portland, Maine home. I began my career in catering sales and operations on the North Shore of Massachusetts before moving to New York and then Maine. And in New York, I worked in that same world for some time, so catering operations. I then transitioned to the venue side of event ops before I moved to Maine. I love private home and non-traditional weddings, the nitty-gritty elements that just quietly make your event come together. You can follow me on Instagram at Lindsey Shaktman to see what I'm up to on the day today. And now I will pass it on over to Sarah.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Sarah. I am our Rhode Island-based wedding planner. I am sort of a born and bred Rhode Island girl, so I began and have continued my career in events here. I started out in event design, so I worked for a design firm that specialized in tented celebrations. We did all sorts of events, not just weddings, but mainly a bulk of it was wedding design. So that's definitely the part of the wedding planning process that I love the most. I love working with couples to just kind of help them develop their vision and really, like Lindsey mentioned, we're all doing create a really deeply personal event. You can follow me on Instagram at Sarah Lynn Crowell, and I will kick it over to Ashley.
Hi guys, good morning. Thanks for being here. I'm Ashley Tangerini. I am based on the North Shore of Massachusetts, so north of Boston. I grew up in Ipswich, Mass, and I still live here today. So in my free time, you'll find me at the beach no matter the time of year. Took a walk there yesterday in the freezing cold with my family, but the beach definitely inspires me. I love doing coastal weddings here on the North Shore. But you can always find some great rustic New England venues here too for a great intimate fall wedding. I started my career as a venue manager actually, and did that for about 10 years. And then for the last 6 years, I have been working on the catering side of things. So kind of the opposite flip-flop of Lindsey, but having seen weddings being planned from two different perspectives, I think helps bring a unique perspective now when we're talking about, being a wedding planner and helping you with your plans. So follow me at ashley.tangerini on Instagram, and I look forward to talking to you soon. I'm going to pass it over to Amanda.
Thank you, Ashley. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Shabbat. Thank you so much for being here. So I am actually born and raised in Wellesley, Massachusetts, and I currently live in Boston, just 20 minutes away. So like Sarah said, born and bred. I've been working on the venue side and in catering at hotels in Boston for about 4 years now, most recently as a sales manager. So I definitely have a great grasp on the scene here in Boston, specifically more traditional hotel wedding venues. I fell in love with events when I was in high school doing productions, acting, and singing. And ever since then, I've just so enjoyed the piecing together of a live event. And the day of the show is just really the most exciting part for me. So you can follow along at amandashabbat.events on Instagram. And you can, there's a link straight to our website and email there. So be sure to check us out.
Awesome. So that is a little bit about all of us. So I think we're going to transition now into a little bit of question and answer. We have a few topics that we knew would be most relevant to all of you that we'll get started with. That being said, again, please feel free to chat us your questions in the chat box. They're totally private to our team. So be as open as you like. Just make sure you're selecting down and chatting to the panelists so that we know we see it. If you don't get to them right away, if we miss something, rest assured we will. Just make sure, chat us again, no big deal. If you need more clarity, you can always follow up with us by contacting our team afterwards. Just shoot us a DM, reach out on the website, give us a call, no big deal. So I think now I will chat a little bit about why private home weddings aren't necessarily less costly than hosting at a venue. This is something I love explaining to couples, just so that we have a full understanding of the full picture and the full scope of your event day. Private home weddings, think of it as when you walk into a venue, you have this full building, this full, flooring is there, restrooms are there, there's catering, kitchen, everything is there for you. They might even have tables and chairs. When you have a wedding at a private home, you're really creating a venue out of a yard, a field, a beachfront, whatever it may be. You're bringing that full venue to life. That means floors, walls, ceilings, and everything with it. So we're going to need to hire a tent company. We're going to need to hire restroom trailers. We might need to bring in a water source if there's hosing not close enough, generators, electricity. So all of that really comes into place. And that's just on a logistical front to build the venue. And then you start getting into choosing your china, your flatware, your linens, all of that on top of it. So when we're explaining a private home budget to our clients, we really want to break it down into what is really coming into play here. All of those logistical elements have to be in place before you can really start to put together all of those beautiful design elements that come afterwards. Does that make sense to people?
Yeah,
Sarah, yeah.
I was just going to say it's super relevant now, obviously, too, because with, everything that we've been through the past year or so, people are really wanting to explore this option. It might be something that they didn't initially think they wanted, but, with everything going on again, they're kind of interested in thinking that they might want to host something like this. And so it is really important. I know that all of us that do work on private home weddings, it's important up front to really explain a lot of those things before you really get into the planning and you commit to the process, because it definitely can be a little overwhelming. But working with a team of experts and having, a planner, I think is so crucial, especially with these types of celebrations, because we're used to working in this kind of environment and building things from the ground up. So I think that it just becomes more important in this situation than any other, really, to have a strong team of people that are experts in the process.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not something that we ever want to scare you with, like, oh, by the way, did you consider all of this money going into your tenting? It's just coming in from a super transparent, realistic perspective. That's the benefit of working with people who have done private home weddings before, because that, we're not just like making numbers up out of thin air. We've done it before. We know everything that's coming into play. So we want to show you everything up front and give you that opportunity to really explore, is a private home wedding best for me? What are the pros? What are the cons? Or do I want to go to a venue or a hotel or whatever may be? There's so many options for where your wedding is that we just want to be super transparent up front about what the cost implications of every type of venue or every type of service is.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a good point.
Yeah, and it looks like a question just came in. Ashley, I don't know if you want to touch on this one. So are there a couple of elements that sometimes get overlooked when producing at-home weddings, like specifically, like what catering considerations might come into play?
So this is interesting too. Like I know a lot of times people look to have a wedding at their house because it's not a wedding venue and not all the Saturdays are already booked up, that their favorite venue might be. But you have to think about the other vendors that you then need to hire that can be available to execute your wedding. So just because your house is available on the most popular Saturday in September doesn't mean we can find a caterer or a band or a tent company that can execute that wedding 6 months in advance, because they very well might already be booked too. So that's kind of a little bit more of a general answer, but it's something to really think about. You definitely have a lot more flexibility having your wedding at your house, but we still want to put the time and effort into vetting the vendors, making sure there is a good team of vendors that is available for you before you have your heart set on one specific date, let's say.
I was going to say, when we all contributed to that article on Over the Moon, we talked about some of the mistakes that are overlooked at private home weddings. And I know a big thing, Lindsey, that we've talked about before is like parking and the actual infrastructure for your vendors. So building out, a catering space where you're having a kitchen that is not the kitchen inside your home, that's a field kitchen, and then having a space for vendors to eat and all of those things. So there is a whole set of infrastructure that's not only necessary for your guests, but also for the team that is bringing it to life. So, making sure you have adequate parking or a place that people can park and we can shuttle them to. Something I dealt with this summer at a private home wedding that we were able to execute was, using a nearby high school to park everyone. And then we had transportation for both vendors and for guests to provide them, going back and forth between the property, because oftentimes a lot of estates that make for the best venues actually don't have a lot of parking, or they're in neighborhoods where there isn't much space. So definitely things like that, and having experts come out and helping you to decide whether you do have that infrastructure in place already, or if it's, again, more that we would need to look into building out.
Yeah, and catering at someone's private home, it's a lot goes into it. You have to imagine that this caterer is cooking a meal for maybe 200 people out of your garage with, ovens that they've rented in, or if you're out in a field somewhere, they literally have built out a kitchen in a tent. So there are caterers out there that know how to do that and do that very well. And having a planner on your side that can, suggest those vendors that can make your day seamless and effortless is going to be helpful and crucial in the long run for you.
Not only that, Ashley, but a point of contact too for when all of these vendors arrive at your private home, arriving to a hotel where there's the concierge who knows what's going on and can direct the florist, to the back room, or the vendors to where they're having their meals. You need to have somebody, not the bride, who can be able to piece this all together, which, whether that's, your friend that you're assigning or a planner that you've hired, is super crucial as well, in making sure that everything is operating properly from start to finish on your big day.
Totally.
So it does look like another question came in that can be relevant for private homes, but also does actually scope out to venue style weddings as well. Just some COVID implications. Are they going to stick around? Are they going to go away? And what will we see in the coming years? I think that there's a myriad of answers to this question, but to kind of break down what I think, and I'd love to even see if you guys have different opinions on that. So, like, will buffets or family style meals make a comeback? This is actually kind of funny. I absolutely think that family style meals are making a comeback, and I think that they're actually happening still right now. It's funny. I was actually looking at how Disney World is doing their dining right now, because it's such this large scope, area, like it's Disney World, and they've transitioned all of their character meet and greet meals that were traditionally buffets to be family style meals. So they know that you're already in your pod and they're just bringing your food directly to you, family style. You're sharing it amongst the people at your table. So I think that family style meals, kind of playing off of what Disney's doing, is something that's absolutely possible, because you know that your guests are seated within their pod. You're making your guest list, you're making your seating assignments, and sharing food in a family style setting is exactly what happens at the dinner table at home. So I think that's definitely something that's sticking around, going to be seen more and more. I think buffets, we might see those more slowly come back. Right now, a lot of buffets are pretty utilitarian. They have, sneeze guards in front of them, which isn't always the most beautiful thing. So I think giving those a little more time to come back, 2022 and beyond, we'll start seeing those. I don't know how popular they'll be 2021 though.
I also think too, you're going to want to think about what your guests are going to feel most comfortable with when they do attend your wedding. So, a plated meal for 2021, that is probably what people will feel comfortable with. Or we need to take the time and make sure that when we are seating guests together, like Lindsey said, they're within their bubble or their pod, to make the people that are attending your wedding feel comfortable. And then in that scenario, a family style meal could be amazing. It looks like you asked about, will square footage per guests always stay higher? I think for a little bit, probably, the amount of people you can have in a space might be a little less than what the max capacity used to be. Again, I do just think the next year or two, we might see a little bit of a smaller guest count for weddings, whether it's people not being able to travel in, or whatever it ends up being. But I do think, we'll get back to what was normal, at some point, probably 2022 and beyond. We'll see things, being exactly like they were in 2019.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the trends that might stick, which is kind of nice, is just thinking about your guest list in a different way from the very beginning. Like thinking about, do I really need these people, or does my mom really need 100 of her friends to come, or whatever it is. Like just thinking about having a smaller guest count from the very beginning to sort of set yourself up to not be in a place that if there are residual restrictions, in the next year or so, that you're not cutting, you're more so just planning more thoughtfully from the beginning of the process with any of those kind of lingering changes that might stick around. Awesome. Okay, so I think we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about design, which again, as I mentioned, my favorite process. I know we all love talking about the pretty things. So something interesting that I think that couples or anyone planning might find interesting is, I think the instinct is, when you first get engaged, you go right to Pinterest, you go right to Instagram, and you're like compiling all of these millions of photos of things you want to replicate, and you're rushing to kind of pull together what you want your day to look like, which definitely has value and definitely can help you in the direction that you're going. But my perspective on it, honestly, is that I love for couples to kind of just take a step back, not jump right into kind of figuring out all of the small details, because those things will come as we really develop your plans. And I like to think of it in layers, it's like we have to get the basics down, and then we're adding on some of the bigger decor, and then we're getting into those smaller Pinterest-worthy details. But I think the way to make your event really feel the most authentic and true to you is really to draw inspiration from your everyday life. What does your house space look like? What does your apartment look like? How do you decorate? Where are you shopping? Do you like to entertain? Because so much of the design isn't necessarily just the visuals. It's really how we're designing the flow of the guest experience as well. So even going back to what we were just talking about, family style versus buffet versus plated, that to me is all a part of the design. And maybe family style is really true to you as a couple because you host a huge Sunday dinner every night, with your family. Maybe not right now, but normally you have a big Sunday dinner and you guys are passing around plates, and so your family will all feel really relaxed and really at home in that kind of, with that kind of service style. So taking a step back from trying to seek out your wedding day style and really letting it develop a little more organically based on kind of your everyday habits. I think that translates so much more authentically when we're putting together and making those decisions layer by layer throughout the entire process. But I'm curious, do you guys, I mean, I think of course we're always asking couples for what's your initial inspiration, and I love to kind of get an idea, kickstart from whatever they have saved. I think it's most unlikely that they won't have any photos at all, but do you guys start there too, like asking people to send photos, or do you ever encourage them to not look at too many things, or how do you guys handle that?
Yeah, so sorry, I was just chatting in the box here. So I love when people like send photos, and even if they're a little all over the place and they can't figure out how to verbalize their design, but they've sent this like myriad of photos to me and they're like, I like these, but and being able to find that common thread between them and pull out like, okay, you know, like this flower is popping up in all of these photos, or, you know, this archway, like a geometrical arch is something that's pretty consistent through all of these. There are some things that at the very beginning, I like when people just kind of, if they have been kind of thinking about things, they photo dump a little bit, even if they can't verbalize it. And then they let us take over from there. It's like, you don't feel like you have to continue to scroll through the Pinterest algorithm that's throwing so much at you at all times and can be so overwhelming. We always joke that we are just trying to get our Pinterests to the correct algorithm. And like Sarah's is always showing her just like food recipes mixed in with these wedding things. So I think it's just this balance of like, show us what you have to start and then let us take over, and we'll present you different options of like where we think it can go from there.
Yeah, totally. And I think a lot of times it's also like perfectly okay to not know what you want, you know, and we have also that style questionnaire that we love to send our clients at the beginning of the process that ask a lot of those questions that are like, take a step back here, like where do you shop, like where do you buy your clothes, you know, where do you guys like to travel? Because like Lindsey's been doing those awesome travel inspiration boards, just the fact that we can find colors and textures and inspiration and, you know, species of flowers from all of those types of details that you might not necessarily be thinking about because you don't do this on an everyday basis, you know? So like we're thinking more in that direction on where are the new things that we can draw inspiration from. And I think for me too, it's like, I don't want to replicate something on Pinterest. I want to find something new. You know, we want to kind of be creating a design that's totally different than what we've seen before. So a lot of times I think that the best designs come out of, you know, just those types of off the beat inspiration sources.
For sure. Yeah. And like incorporating, you know, like I think it can be hard to verbalize, like, again, like Sarah said, I love to travel, but then it's like, I've been to so many places. How am I even incorporating all of like the fun experiences I have traveling into my wedding day? And I think that's something that a lot of people might have questions about, like, how do you even incorporate all of your passions and your family heirlooms and your history into your wedding day?
Mm-hmm. And I think someone touched on this before. I think a lot of our clients come to us and if they saw like 3 pictures next to each other, they might be able to tell you they like this, but they can't verbalize it. And a lot of people have issues with that. So for us, it's fun to kind of try to figure that out. And when we're presenting you with your design plan, if you're looking at partnership 1 or 2, it's great to have feedback from you. We need to hear, we love this, but we don't like this. We want that conversation to continue with our clients to make sure that throughout the whole process, we're still capturing like your vision and picture, as we go forward.
Mm-hmm. We're telling like a story too, it's not just an event, it's a story of you and your partner, and pulling details like that is just how it's going to make it unique and special. And that's what we love to hear too, because we're working on all these events and they're all unique to you, the client and the couple.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think collaboration, Ashley, that's such a good point. Like all of my best design meetings come when we're together with, the floral team, and we have our rentals in front of us and we're playing with things, and I think we're almost never, choosing the option that we think we're going to choose. It's always a combination of something else, but collaboration is a huge thing too, not only from our clients, but also with the vendor team that we're helping you build. And that really creates, I think, that's when you get the magic sort of design.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great segue into having Amanda touch a little bit about creating your budget and how all of those details come together.
Definitely, especially when you're not working with a planner, which is kind of why we're here to help you navigate through this. So when you don't have a planner, it can be really, really hard to tell what costs what and where you should be allocating all of your funds, because you don't have somebody who's done this a million times before. So it's kind of tricky. You're taking on like a full-time job planning a wedding while you also have a full-time job, and life is still happening outside of this event that you're building. So that being said, I mean, before you become overwhelmed, I think the first step is to build your guest count. That is going to be that number, your guest count is going to be a factor in everything. How many napkins you need, how many chairs you need, what your table settings will look like. So the more people, the more everything. So starting with your guest count is absolutely the first place to begin. And then from there, I absolutely recommend finding out who's contributing. Once you have that, you'll have a really nice picture of kind of what you're working with. And then from there, you can start to break it down. So what's important to you? Is it the food that's going to be the most important? Is it the design? Is it the location? Do you want to do a destination wedding, or is this going to be at your family home? And deciding what's most important to you. And then from there, doing your research. So you don't know if, since the design is most important, you assume that the florals, et cetera, will be the bulk of your budget. But I know, and we all know from experience, that not everything is flat rate pricing. It's not a menu on someone's website. They're providing a service that's customized to you. So I know it's scary to be reaching out, but it's really made it easy, I think, the industry, by providing contact forms on all of these websites. So I think the best bet would be to gather those numbers to really build out your solid budget. It's just ask, it's just reach out. It really can't help. And it can be really quick too if you provide the right details in your initial inquiry. So letting the vendor know when you're getting married, where you're getting married, and just a little bit about you and what's important to you will help them understand just from your first and initial contact, how they can help you.
Yeah, and I know, a lot of vendors nowadays have their pricing right online, with different packages. And sometimes people get scared away by that. If they see a photography package for 12 hours with 2 photographers and a photo album at the end for X amount of dollars, they get scared away by that. But a lot of vendors, especially these days, are willing to have those conversations with you and find out what your needs are and build a package around what you need. So, don't get scared off by just seeing those initial numbers right on their websites. It's always helpful to at least put a feeler out and say, I think I only need 1 photographer, and I think I only need you for 8 hours, and we don't really need a photo album at the end. Is that something you can do for me, and how much would that cost?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think sometimes when you're new to the process, if your family's never planned a wedding before, you've never had experience with these types of budgets for a large event, you don't necessarily even know what should go in each category. So that research phase, getting opinions from a couple of different people, seeing like, oh, okay, is this kind of an average price range? Like, things might cost more than you think that they cost, just because you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, is kind of what I always say. Like, if you have no idea what a wedding photographer costs, you might initially be like, oh wow, that's expensive. But upon doing a little more research, you might realize, oh, okay, well, for what I need, this really is what it costs. So that's just an interesting piece too. I think sometimes people lead with, they build a budget but it's not based on actual information. So I think, Amanda, what you said about just reaching out to as many people, as you feel like you want to or you can handle, and getting a little bit of a feel for what their responses are and what those ranges are, is a good way to figure out how your money should be allocated.
Mm-hmm. And asking for an average too. People have starting prices, but as we all know, it can only go up from there. So asking for an average will definitely give you a great scope too. And if they are booked or if they are out of budget, these vendors do have, connections, and they can pass you on to, their sister company that might be available on that date, etc. So it's always, always, always awesome to just ask, because you shall receive. It won't backfire in any way. And it's great to be, just in the know and educated.
And working with a planner can help with your overall budgeting process. If depending on when we come on your team, we can have those conversations, excuse me, about what are your top priorities. And then that will help us start to figure out where the money should be allocated the right way. A lot of times people say like, well, I can't afford a wedding planner, but you're putting your money into somebody that can help you use your money wisely and the best way possible throughout the process. So it's kind of like counterintuitive. You think you're spending like more money, for extra help, but we have a lot of contacts. We have ways, we can get you multiple budgets. We can help you weigh the pros and cons of a band or a DJ, or is it more important to have your 200 guests or stay within this certain amount of money? And we can help you kind of have those conversations, prioritize, and make the smartest decisions for your wedding.
Yeah, it's almost like an insurance policy. Like planners are kind of a way of insurance in our own regard, helping you to, like, it's a huge amount of money that you're spending on your wedding day. I mean, I think that's just the reality. No matter what your budget is, it's always a lot of money. Weddings are expensive. And just knowing, even the opposite of what I said before, you might allocate too much money in a certain category. And, especially with design, there are so many ways that at a more traditional venue, like Lindsey mentioned, that rentals are included. How can we incorporate those into your design? We don't have to upgrade every single plate. I think a lot of Pinterest pictures, you think you have to have a charger and a dinner plate and a stack this high to make it look beautiful. But, a lot of times less is more. And utilizing some of those options that are already included that you might not think of, that, we can help you play with.
Sure. And I feel like also, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So I feel like also when you are these days thinking about maybe downsizing your event, you're looking at your budget, that you can really maximize certain areas of your budget, and maybe you have a smaller guest list, but your budget is still your budget. That's where spots do open up to upgrade to, maybe you do want to add a charger or a special napkin that, we always say, the items that people will feel and touch and experience directly are really great opportunities to add. If you have area in your budget to add and upgrade, those pieces that people are touching are those areas that you should be focusing on. So again, a specialty napkin, really nice flatware, glassware, excuse me, like all of those elements, especially when you're downsizing your guest list, you can make these details really special and make sure that your wedding really is uniquely you. Like, you have favorite colors throughout your house, back to what Sarah was talking about, design, and you didn't really know how to incorporate that beautiful print that you bought from this farmer's market when you were in Mexico one time, and now you can maybe custom order that for a napkin or for a table runner. There's all these options to upgrade when you are downscaling your guest list. So even if you do feel like maybe the pandemic and COVID is hindering certain elements of your wedding, a planner can really help you to enhance that experience for all of your guests.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing I wanted to mention too, just about having, a planner and sort of the other value that goes along with that. We were saying kind of, the investment part of it, but really just the access to the network that we have. I think especially in this time that we're in, where we're sort of seeing, the overflow of 2020 into 2021, and which now is going to trickle into 2022. Just being realistic, scheduling and things are booking further out than we've seen them book before. Where you might have thought you were perfectly on schedule, you might find like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of behind. This venue really doesn't have any Saturdays left or whatever. But we're constantly talking to these vendors and working with the teams that we know, and we're sharing networks and, using each other's contacts, but being able to give you a quick answer of the know-how of like, hey, we know these 3 amazing photographers that are available for your date, and we can kind of move quickly and help you expedite that research process a little bit, especially again, now when things are booking up further out than they normally would.
Yeah. And things are changing, every day right now. Somebody that you could have reached out to last week might not have been available, but we chat with them on a weekly basis, and they shoot us an email and let us know like, hey, I just had 3 weddings move and we have these dates available now. And it might be something that we hear about and know about that might have just happened, or that you might not have, the access to, but we have those open lines of communication with all of these vendors that we've built relationship with, which in turn will help kind of the planning process for you hopefully be a little bit more smooth and seamless.
For sure. And Ashley, I think that's a great little segue to talk a little bit about the venue search process, whether you're doing it for a quick engagement or a long-term engagement, and what, the venue search process looks like.
Sure. So a lot of people ask, should I find my venue before I hire a planner? Do I need a planner for the venue search? What are the pros and cons to that? If you're newly engaged and haven't started that process yet, it can be a big benefit to you to bring a planner on board, from the beginning. Everything we've talked about today kind of, goes along with what I'm about to say, but it's being smart about the search and making sure that the number of guests that you're planning on having will fit in the venue, making sure that your overall budget works with the costs of the venue. So being able to kind of plan that out and detail that out with you before we start the process is going to help you in the long run, stay on budget and stay, in the style of wedding that you want to have too. A lot of times we find people that just jump on a venue that isn't really going along like the style or vibe that they wanted to have because it was a good deal, or because they had the date they wanted, or other people fall in love with a venue that they really can't afford with their overall budget, with everything else they want to do. But then in the end, they just have to continue to compromise elsewhere throughout the rest of the process. So if we can help you kind of navigate through all of that and make a good plan kind of based on what your top priorities are, we can, again, kind of help you smartly use your budget from the get-go. The other thing is with, there are so many venues across the North Shore, across New England these days, that if you haven't done this before, it can be a very overwhelming and intimidating process. Having a planner that kind of knows 50 or 100 venues in the area, and especially with Mavinhouse, with a team of people, it might not just be, a North Shore wedding, but it might be somebody looking in Maine. Then we can tap Lindsey's expertise, or a Boston hotel. We can, tap Amanda's expertise. There are so many venues. It's hard to even know who to email, where to start, who to go tour with. So we can kind of help you narrow that down from the get-go based on your guest count, your budget, what you want for the style of the wedding. So it can just be a benefit for a number of different reasons, I guess.
Yeah, I think once you're at a venue tour also, just knowing the right questions to ask is a big thing as well. I mean, we can walk into a space and sort of visualize how your event's going to play out because we're just used to looking at a space in that way. But you might get there and be like, oh gosh, what should I even ask? Like, do I need to ask about power? Do I need to ask about water? Do I need to ask about lighting? And so just kind of knowing those, we have a whole checklist that we go through that we know that we need to ask when we're visiting a space, especially for the first time. So having a planner with you to help you just make sure you're getting all of the information out of the tour that you need really to make an informed decision, I think also is a big factor.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It's like, you get to a venue and it's pretty and, you're kind of like blinded by like the shiny objects, but you leave there and forget to ask like all the important questions. Like, are there bathrooms? Is there parking? Like some of the things that you don't think about. What's the ceremony plan B option if it rains? The outdoor plan A option could be beautiful and amazing, but there could literally not be an option if it rains. And unfortunately, a venue probably isn't going to tell you that during a tour, but you're going to want to think about it and you're going to want to have a smart plan if that happens that day. So it's thinking about all those little things that you don't want to as a bride, but we can kind of make sure, we have all of those answers before making a decision.
Totally.
It's also good too to look at where your venue is and what year it is. So like in Boston, just specifically, like we have so many universities and colleges. September can be a crazy time to get a hotel room block. So those are all questions that we as planners and you as searching for a venue should definitely keep in mind as well. If you have a heavy design, project, can you hang this? What's the acoustics like? So those are all questions.
How long do I have to set up? If you only have 2 hours for setup, that's going to limit what you can realistically do in terms of design. And there are venues out there that do operate that way if they're a museum or, a historic property that might be open for tours during the day. A lot of venues have a very limited window of setup time, and we kind of know those details, and what we're presenting to you in terms of design suggestions will work within that time frame for you. We're not going to be unrealistic with what we're presenting to you and we'll be able to deliver that day.
Not fun to find that out once you fall in love with the design element and then you realize you have 30 minutes to make it happen.
Yep.
That's not fun, so.
Yeah, I think also what I like doing with my couples, you think about it right now, it's winter, things are pretty, the grounds might be covered with snow, things aren't in bloom. You're looking at these venues and it might be really, while there are some shiny things to get blinded by, there's still a lot of things that you really just can't visualize. I always love to go back to the venue with the client about 12 months out. You can see, where is the sun setting? What kind of trees are in bloom? Are there annuals already planted in the ground? And what color are those? And really kind of, again, bouncing back to design, it all circles back, is helping. These decisions about your venue can help to answer so many questions along the way of, is your design conflicting with the venue, or are you just enhancing elements that already exist? And to do that, it's really part of your venue tour process. You're looking at things, yes, from a logistic perspective, but also you're looking at it from a design perspective. You're looking at it from a functionality. You're looking at it from a guest experience. There's so many ways to look at a venue. I always love to do a walkthrough from a caterer's perspective. What's their loading situation? And then a walk through from a guest perspective. What is their experience from, parking all the way through exiting after the reception? There's so many ways to look at a venue that I think that as a client, when you're doing those tours, you maybe might feel uncomfortable being like, well, what's the caterer's experience here? What, like, really actually, how far is the walk from the parking lot to, or is it the same walk I just took that was half a mile, or is there a different, parking scenario? There's all sorts of things that are going on during a venue site visit that I think can be very overwhelming, which is why, we'd love to be there for our clients and kind of guide that process for them.
And I think too, there's just a lot of different ways you can allocate and end up spending your money. And it all kind of, every piece kind of like works within each other. It's like, if you choose a wedding venue with a beautiful garden, maybe you don't need to spend a lot of money on the florals for the ceremony, and that money can be allocated somewhere else. Or if you choose, like a rustic barn or a tent that's like a completely blank canvas, you're going to need to spend some extra money to make that look the way you want it to. So it all just factors into each other. The venue you pick, your budget, your guest count, everything kind of then just keeps, it just all, keeps, I don't know.
Connecting back, coming together for sure. I think this is a great time. We have about 15-20 minutes left here. We'd love to open the floor to more of your questions. We do have a couple that we've gotten in that we'll address. I also do want to mention that you will be getting a recording of this sent to you via email. So if you feel like you missed something, you had to run out, grab a coffee or something during this, whatever it may be, let us know if you have questions now. But again, we will be emailing this back to people. So Amanda, I think a great question we got earlier was about vendor trials and kind of what does that look like and why you should or shouldn't, or whatever that process is, take your vendors up on trial sessions, tastings, engagement shoots, all of those options.
So I always recommend doing your trial session for many reasons. Them being, you only get kind of one shot at this on the day of your wedding. So why not have that little bit of security? And it's always nice to chat with these people as well. They're going to be there on your wedding day. They're going to be a major part of something so special to you. You want to have a connection with your makeup artist. Maybe she knows that you love brown tones now, or she recommended a lipstick color that she may have recommended on your wedding day that didn't work for you. So it's super important to take those vendors up on those. And not only that, it's also a fun kind of way to enjoy the planning process. Grab a bridesmaid, grab your mom, head to, the florist and kind of play around and just have a good time with it, because it doesn't have to be so scary when it's not on, the actual day. I didn't know if anyone else wanted to jump in, but especially too for your photographer, I highly recommend a trial session, because they're going to need to get to know you and know if they need to loosen you up, or, your bad side, or whatever it may be. Your photos are so, so important. So always, always, always do a trial there, because I've had some horror stories from people who just were so stiff and they just wish they had had that opportunity to get a little more comfortable before jumping into those engagement sessions.
Yeah, I think it just lets you like loosen up for the wedding day pictures too. And, just figure it out, and you can be silly and whatever. And sometimes those are the best pictures that come out of it.
Yeah, I think that all of those kind of trial sessions, like makeup, is if you have a traditionally undertoned setting and you go to a makeup artist that got recommended by a friend who's a little more glitz and glam, Hollywood, shine, that might not be a match for you. And maybe it was a great match for your friend and she had a great experience there, but there are so many different vendors out there that trying things out throughout the planning process. One, it's very fun. You're getting your makeup done, you're getting your hair done, you're going to a catering tasting, you're eating this delicious food. There's so many fun things along the way that we don't want you to forget about. We don't want you to miss throughout this process. And it's just a fun time that you really get to talk about the intricacies of actually, I really only just wear mascara on the day to day. How can we just enhance that for my wedding day? I don't want to feel like I'm caked on with layers and layers of makeup, or, doing a tasting with your caterer. When I was in catering, I always loved when moments would come up and a groom or a bride would say, oh, whenever I go to the bar, I always love ordering a Cosmo because, Carrie Bradshaw did that or whatever it is. It's just this funny moment where you can then make a note. The caterer is going to make a note on that menu and say the bride loves Cosmos. And then the chances are a Cosmo is going to appear in front of you during cocktail hour. Those little moments happen when you're working with the right vendors, you're doing those trial sessions, and you're experiencing every moment that's available to you throughout the planning process.
And you can just be more relaxed on the day of. Like, you already know what to expect. And I think a lot of times the most nerve-wracking moments come from like just being unsure, and you're most of the time going through this whole day for the first time. And so you already have enough emotions and nerves. So just feeling relaxed that you know what you're going to eat, it tastes good, you're going to drink, it's going to taste good, just makes you feel more relaxed.
Yeah. So it looks like we got a question about what we're seeing with our 2021 couples, and are people moving to 2022? Are people staying in 2021? What does late 2021 look like, and what that process is? Sarah, did you want to touch on that a little bit?
Sure. I think that, for the most part, most of my 2021 couples are staying the course for right now, and really just have chosen to kind of roll with whatever residual kind of restrictions we might have in place. And a lot of the things that we mentioned today, downsizing or adjusting your budget for a smaller guest count. So being able to make some catering upgrades, some design upgrades, some outfit upgrades, things like that. And most of those couples are ones that have rescheduled from 2020 already. So, life is moving forward. And so they want to just kind of continue on with their celebration. But I do have some new couples also that have just started planning for 2021. And, I think that I feel good about where we're going to be in the summer. I think that we're in a much different place than we were last year, where we were sort of dealing with, being cautious and kind of going in a direction of like, we don't have a vaccine and things could get worse before they get better. And now we're like, things are going to get better. We're on the up and up, and we're moving in the right direction. So for right now, honestly, I've only had one couple make changes from their 2021 to 2022. Everyone else is kind of waiting to get a little more information. And I think a lot of people are considering how the vaccine rollout goes, which is feeling promising and, is feeling really good. All of your vendors are so excited to be doing work this year. And I think the attention to really taking care of your guests and making sure that they all feel safe, and that, everyone's had the time to really like zone in on their best practices, whether it's food, photography, beauty, making sure that everything is really, really safe. So everyone is really excited to be working. And so I think that we are going to feel much more prepared this year for sure.
Yeah. And I think a huge thing is like we all made it through the 2020 season. We saw where we were able to get in terms of, what we were allowed to do this year for weddings. I think, like you said, Sarah, it can only get better for 2021 because of the vaccine, because of everything else we know. All of your vendors, your venues, your caterers, your planners, they have been able to see what worked last year, what didn't work. We know how to keep you and your guests safe. I think it's really smart to be very upfront with your guests that are planning on attending and kind of giving them an outline of how the day will look. We've seen that happen a few times this past year, and I do think it really helped the guests feel comfortable knowing that they were going to be coming to a safe wedding. You know what I mean? If you're upfront and you can kind of tell them these are the precautions that the staff is taking and this is what we're doing to keep you safe and healthy, people are going to be a lot more apt to feel good coming to your weddings this year.
For sure.
This is what we want to continue doing, and we can only do that if we're doing it safely and moving in the right direction. So that's probably our number one priority moving into 2021 is the safety of our guests and making sure that we can still enjoy this moment while, being responsible and making sure it's appropriate to do so as well.
So I think we have time for just one more question. We've had so much fun today. This has been really incredible. So let's sneak one more question in, which I'm just trying to scroll and find what it was. Oh, here we go. What is full design support? We actually get this question a lot. And we've all kind of touched on it via our Instagram stories and things like that. And it's really pertinent. So does somebody want to pick that question up?
Sure. I mean, I've sort of been the design leader here, so I can start off. I think, to keep it kind of short, because I know we touched on a little bit about kind of grabbing everybody's photos, curating them, and starting the process there. But I think just making it a little broader, design is a huge part of what we offer here at Mavinhouse, and in partnerships 1 and 2, that whole process is included in that flat rate. So really anyone that identifies as feeling like they need design support, those would be the 2 partnerships that we would recommend for you. And that process really is comprehensive. We're not just putting together, like a quick mood board for you. That really is only the very beginning of the process. And so we're starting with gathering any photos that you have, anything that you're drawn to already. And like Lindsey mentioned, finding the common thread, helping you curate them, and really creating a document that we like to call our vibe board, just kind of starting to get the essence of what your day is going to look and feel like. And that's really the first deliverable that you're getting with the design process, which is really just sort of like us intaking everything and spitting back out our version of what we interpret your vision to be. And then from there, we'll kind of collaborate together. And like Ashley said, we would love to hear from you. Hey, what do you like about this photo? What do you hate about this photo? Do you even like this photo at all? Because we're bringing in some of the inspiration that we use and that we're curating on our Pinterests and other sources of inspiration as well. And then from there, we'll do a couple versions of that as needed, or hopefully we hit it the first time. And then we're using that as a springboard to create a more comprehensive design plan. And that document is much more robust and sort of walks through each of the areas of your plans. So starting with just kind of a general color story, what are we drawing inspiration from? That can be textures, that can be places, that can be abstract art imagery, anything to just kind of capture a sense of what colors we're going to be focusing on. And then we'll go through each area of your event, your ceremony, your cocktail hour, your tabletop details, your floral, reception, the exit, and then any sort of like fun details that we might be including as well. And we'll really detail that out for you and help you to, again, keeping your budget in mind, keeping your vendors in mind, will help you to kind of decide what elements are going to make the biggest impact for you. And if there are any things that we have new ideas for you, or things that you haven't thought of, we'll have that included in there, as well as helping you choose individual pieces. So giving you recommendations on what glassware, what flatware, those things that can feel like there are just so many options that you might not know where to start. Maybe we're handing you 3 and saying, I think any of these would work. Does one speak to you more than the other? And then that design plan really works as a guide for the project as a whole. We share it with your vendor team so that they all get a sense of exactly the direction that we're going. And we're really using it as a roadmap. So it's a super robust process that we love doing, but it really helps everyone to truly understand what that end vision is supposed to look like and what direction we're going in. And I think it helps everyone be a little more on target with the offerings that they're giving in each different area.
And I think it's really important to tell people these things, because people read our services and our partnerships and people don't know what that means, a design plan. And a lot of times people, think that just means suggesting like a linen and like a charger. And, again, it's those conversations of, this is what I really need, and how do we make it work within my budget? So explaining that to somebody, they might say, oh, that's exactly what I need. Or they might say, that's way too much. I feel like I just need, a floral suggestion and pulling some little details together. So it's finding the right partnership level, within our services that works for each person. And that really just, it's explaining what each level really means and what those services are. So I think that was super helpful for people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it's also what we love about incorporating design services with our offerings and our partnerships is that one, you're working with the same person as well as with support from the firm. Like I've said, like my background is a lot more logistically heavy than whereas Sarah's is a lot more design. Like we have each other to bounce off of, and which is one of my favorite things about Mavenhouse. But it's also with the design services and working with us, it's really down to those small details, whether it's, you know, a welcome package and we're encouraging you to use strawberries and make jams from your family farm, and those little details that are really going to make your event go that much further for your guests and make it so personal and this extra beautiful experience, whether it's a weekend long celebration, whether it's just a one Saturday night moment. There's so many moments throughout the whole process that we can help through the design partnerships to make sure that all of those details are coming together. Again, I love to say that it's uniquely you. Like your celebration is your celebration. It's not just another Mavenhouse wedding. Like that's not a thing. And that's what I love to say too. It's like Mavenhouse, we're so diverse with our offerings and with who we are as people that you're getting the planning partnership that you want, the planning partner that's coming to the table for you. We're representing you and we're bringing together your vision, and you know that's what we love to do. So I think, you know, we've kind of come to a touch over an hour here. It's a great time to wrap it up a bit. We are really just so appreciative that you've all taken the time today to come and join us on Zoom. We really invite you to stay in touch again via DMs, through Instagram, follow us along, see what we're up to. And also feel free to schedule a free consultation with any of us. You can do that right on our website. We will also be emailing you the recording from today's webinar and a very special, super cool, like 90s Cosmo magazine wedding day style quiz. It's coming to your inbox very shortly. And that's really going to help you to nail down what we've just been talking about is your wedding day design. Super fun. I take it about once a month. My style has never changed, but I love it so much. You'll be hearing from us once monthly also with our newsletter called Back of the House, where we're sharing tips and resources that we think are really going to help you along your journey. So there's all sorts of ways to keep in touch with us. Again, we really, really appreciate you tuning in today and coming with your questions and sharing your stories with us. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you guys.
Bye everyone. Thank you.